Okay, good morning, everyone. We'll get started. As I said, it's a packed agenda, and I've got a lot of things, information to share. Excited to do that. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Andy Cooper. I'm on the Business Agility New Zealand committee, and have been on that for, I think, coming up for 5 years. We've got Ant as well from the committee helping out today, keeping me from hopefully going over time, and also just monitoring any questions. So thanks, Ant, for helping out. So anyway, I'm going to get started. So let me just share my screen. Okay, so just a little bit of a prelude before I start. So not going to be too many. Last time I tried to add in a lot of AI gimmicks, tools. This time around, I'm keeping it more simple. But I have got a lot of information that I'm going to show or leave for people to review. But the one tool that I'm continuing to use is a product called Gamma. So that's sort of a next generation AI based presentation information tool. And I found it quite good for doing these sort of talks, especially with the dynamic nature of the space. So AI is accelerating at an incredible pace, and I found Gamma has been really good for me to try and allow me to adapt to this pace that things are changing. So just briefly explaining, for hopefully you read the email so you know what to sort of expect, but I'm going to run through firstly an update on tools. So I know from looking through the participant list, there's a whole bunch of new people who weren't at my first session back in September. So when I talk about an AI tool update, it'll be somewhat of a blend of new and old for those of you who were there at the previous session. Likewise, around prompts and prompting, I'm not running through the same material I went through last time. I'm just going to sort of give an update on the thinking around prompting. Going to talk around AI, what we're sort of seeing around AI in the workplace, and this would be interesting to get your feedback. What's happening in your organization? Because I know it's really varied. Some nothing's happening, some quite a lot. Be useful to get insights on what's going on in your organization, and then we're going to touch on the road ahead. And this is one of the interesting things for me, because I'm at this point now where I'm just wondering where this is leading. And you'll see later on my sort of thoughts around that. Hopefully we get time for some discussion through your questions. So anyway, let's leap right into talking about an update on the common tools. So I'm going to focus predominantly on the chat tools. So yes, I'm using an AI tool to present, and there's heaps of other tools that are around there for doing all sorts of things, but I'm focusing on the tools that most people use most often. And these are the chatbot or chat tools that are around. So ChatGPT is still by far the leading tool, and we'll see later on, it's still the predominantly used tool by far. The paid version, ChatGPT 4, for those of you that were at my last session, you would have heard me say categorically that it's worth paying the money for. It's way better than the free version. And it continues to add new features that make it better and better, including things like GPTs, including light vision and other things as well. So it still has a huge wave of innovation coming through that it trickles down into the Microsoft tools that we'll talk about in a minute as well. So Microsoft is a partner of OpenAI, the company that makes ChatGPT, and they are leveraging the technology in their tools. The new tool that just came out about a month ago. So Google had a poor start in the AI space. They came out with a product called Bard, which most people said equal to bad, and it really wasn't a good first attempt at creating a chatbot, and it really put Google behind. So they've recently come out with a new tool called Gemini. So Gemini comes in a free version and then a paid version. and a bit like with ChatGPT, that seems to be the trend now. You have a free and a paid, and then you choose. The paid version, advanced, is actually available now. I think it's 2 months. You get 2 months free. So if you want to play around with it, it's worth doing that. So you can get access to Gemini Advanced for free. Now, Gemini Advanced, in my view, if you're a Google user, is a really good option. So if you have a Google account and you use Google in your work, then Gemini, in my view, would be a better tool than ChatGPT because of its really tight integration with the Google tools. So it will become more and more embedded into all of the Google tools, the email, Gmail, and also all the Google other writing and so on tools. It's actually, in my view, actually really quite good now. So it's in my view, better than ChatGPT for a lot of text-based tasks. So anyway, it's free. Play around with it. See what you think. I think it's personally pretty good. Claude's been around for a little while. I mentioned that last time. Now, when I spoke about it to the group last time, it wasn't available in New Zealand. You had to be in the US or the UK. And the only way of getting hold of it was to trick the Claude into thinking you lived in the US. Of course, David from our US team, we had a US address, so it was quite convenient for me to use that. I just became the nominal member of which of course I am somewhat, of the US team, and was sort of domiciled in the US to get hold of it. You can now get hold of Claude from New Zealand. Now, Claude is fantastic for dealing with large documents. So especially the paid version, it can deal with documents up to, it's actually more, I had 75,000, but it actually can go up to 175,000. So you can load some incredibly large files and interrogate those files, and then summarize them, and get intelligible information out. The other really good thing about Claude is that it tends to not hallucinate, which is the word for make stuff up. Very often it does, but it's less than some of the other tools. And it comes out with really intelligible, usable English. So sometimes ChatGPT can be quite verbose, and it doesn't sound very human. It sounds like, over the top. So I'm going to show you how you get around that shortly. But Claude comes out with some pretty usable text without having to do a lot of extra work, which just saves time. Perplexity I mentioned last time. Sorry, it's sort of skipping between them. So Perplexity is interesting now because that's now over a $1 billion cap. It's gone from nowhere. But the reason people are talking about it and the reason why it's become so popular is because it's actually really good. So Perplexity is effectively a modern version of Google for search. So try that. It's free. But if you want to do some research on a topic and you want to find a synthesized, summarized version of information, try Perplexity. There is a paid version, but personally, I haven't seen any great benefits in that. So I would just stick with the free version and use it where you would use Google. Now, interestingly, Google is coming out with a similar version of that. It's called Google Generative Summary, because they realize Perplexity is going to give them a run and they're going to potentially lose a massive market share. But there's a lot of backing behind Perplexity, and it's going to become bundled with a lot of other tools. So anyway, it's great for research. Definitely one of those go-to tools if you haven't used it. So in the Microsoft world, they've changed the names on various tools over the time. So it used to be called Bing Chat, now called CoPilot. But they're confusingly using the term CoPilot across about 35 different products. So CoPilot is a brand, but then there's a whole bunch of different products that sit within this. It can refer to the chat. It can refer to functionality within a whole bunch of Microsoft tools, including the Power BI and the Microsoft 365 and all the other sort of tools. But there's a free version of Microsoft CoPilot, which is built into Windows 11, but you can also download it from Microsoft site. And then there's the commercial version that comes with organizations that have enterprise licenses for Microsoft. Now, the main difference between the free and the commercial version is that the data is you'll see a sign saying that your data is secure. So that it means it's popular with organizations now because you can do chats and you can paste things into it and you're not revealing your company secrets. So that's why Microsoft CoPilot will be the tool of choice, including in our organization, for use within organizations, because it does secure the information. Now, it has some severe limitations, frankly, around that. One of them is that it doesn't save your chats. Now, there is some new functionality added this week that actually overcomes that, and I haven't had a chance to have a good look at that. But obviously, Microsoft are recognizing that, you know, that people are still going to use other tools if it doesn't actually provide some basic functionality. The other big issue with the Microsoft Copilot is that it only allows you, well, only allowed you to enter a prompt that was up to 4,000 characters, which is quite limited if you want to add a lot of context. So anyway, I guess that's somewhat you get what you know, if you're paying nothing, then that's partly what you get. And that is bundled free with Microsoft accounts. So there's the Gemini free version, pretty good. But again, right now I would suggest you go to the advanced and play around with it under the free trial. And then there's ChatGPT 3.5, which is probably what a lot of you are using, the free version of ChatGPT. It's good, but not nearly as good as the ChatGPT 4. And ChatGPT 4 will become ChatGPT 5 at some point later this year. And that is going to be another massive leap forward. There's various speculation around what that will do and what it will mean, but it is going to be one step closer to the term, what we call AGI, or artificial general intelligence, which is one of the big next steps in artificial intelligence. And effectively, artificial general intelligence means that these chatbots, or the large language models, are capable of achieving human level at pretty well all tasks, all written and text and so on tasks. So they're getting close to that, but they lack currently in things like reasoning and mathematics, because they're based on languages. But they're getting very close to solving those problems, and will be at human level for pretty well everything, probably within the next year or two. So think about that. Then the new one that came out this week, there's a French company called Mistral, and they've come from nowhere in the last year to be dominating the open source space in this area. So they have a number of free chatbots that you can download and install, Mistral various versions. But they've just this week provided access to a chatbot that you can play around with. So it's called Le Chat, which also means cat in French, for those of you who did French at school. But French people do actually talk about chat as well, so it does mean both. So Le Chat is pretty good. I've played around with it briefly, and it looks pretty good, because it's based on a very powerful model. So again, this Mistral are pretty close behind the best paid models, and you can download them, and you can literally run them on your own machine. That's so organizations that are looking to run internal chatbots are often they're either looking at the Mistral, or they're looking at the Llama, what's called Llama 2 from Meta. So Meta is the company that's behind Facebook. So anyway, that's a sort of quick run through of the tools. ChatGPT is still the best from, I guess, overall tool. If you're in the Google world, Gemini is good. Perplexity for search. That's sort of my very quick summary on that. Okay, and if you just want to look at, there's a newsletter I'm going to recommend later on called the Neuron. So that's got quite a nice summary of other generative AI tools for the workplace. So again, not going to run through that now, but you can look at that. So I have posted a link to this presentation in the chat, and you can review all of this at leisure, including a lot of videos and other things that I've embedded in this as well. So in terms of, this was last year, it's a little bit out of date, but I just wanted to give you an idea that in terms of the landscape of what's out there, the most visited AI tools. Now, the one that surprises most people is this character AI, which a lot of people never heard of, and that is a persona generating system. So basically, you go there and you can interact with a wide range of personalities, the Elon Musk personality, or Taylor Swift, or whoever. You can create your own. So there's a slight business purpose in there. So you could create a persona that represented a customer if you were into product design, and actually use that to do product research. It's pretty cool. But character AI is very popular amongst youth, and that's why it's number 2. So apparently a lot of young people like interacting with these fictional characters. So this is sort of like a little survey. So what tool are people using? This was again in that same newsletter from the Neuron. So again, just the other one that I would just highlight is GitHub CoPilot. So those of you who are into coding, that's the tool of choice for coding. Although there are a lot of new tools coming out in that space as well. So as you'd expect, there's a lot of opportunity to improve productivity in coding. And so a lot of money is going into to make that better. And I guess if I look at it and think, looking forward, there's probably, we're probably looking at, in a 5-year time zone, the lifespan of a lot of programming. So this is not to say we won't have programmers or that we won't have programs, but the way we interact, I think, is going to change quite dramatically over the next 5 years, because these tools are getting so good. So we're still going to have to be able to interact with what gets programmed, but we probably are not going to be doing a lot of coding in this sort of 5-year time frame. I think that's just the trajectory we're on. And obviously that probably makes sense. But of course, if those of you who are programmers, then it's like, what happens there? So anyway, it's food for thought. There's a lot of good information that I can share later on that. In terms of website demographics, so I literally pulled this out today. So this just gives an idea on what are the, what are the sort of age range, or who's interacting. And it's the millennial that are the late millennials that are the big users of ChatGPT. And then as we get sort of older, it sort of drops off. So the vast majority of younger people, and then it's sort of getting, for older people like me, unusual. So, which I am anyway, but yeah, that's a worry, because I think what I'm going to say later on is we need to help try and bring as many people along this AI journey as possible, because there's a sort of a wave coming at us at a rapid rate. So we can't afford to have a large majority of our population not understanding or embracing what's coming forward. So anyway, that was interesting. Okay, so I'm not going to, don't have time to run through all of these, but what I have done is recorded a little demos for a lot of the tools that we covered before. But so the way this thing works is, you can go and watch them yourself later on. So that's my sort of point, is they're here. You can look at them yourselves later on, if you want to have a look at how they work. So this is, the first one was CoPilot. So this is the one that's like rolled out in our organization. Notice down the bottom, it says your personal and company data are protected in this chat. So that's the one that we have access to at Skills. And, it's okay. And, given that most organizations don't allow anything, it's pretty good. And Microsoft, having a big investment from OpenAI, investing a lot in OpenAI, it will get better and better. The issue for them at the moment is just economic. To roll this out costs them a lot of money. So they need to charge more to be able to make this economically work. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to be crying poor, because they're not. But literally running these AI tools costs quite a lot of money. So if you're a power user, you're actually using a lot of compute power, like I am. So I'm sort of, unfortunately, probably becoming a carbon crime criminal with the amount of AI use I do. So anyway, that's you can have a look at that later on if you've never played around with it. But again, it's the version that's in organizations not that much different than what you can look at on the internet. But this is the one that we have access to at our organization. If you're in a Microsoft shop, probably the one you're going to have access to. ChatGPT, so the paid version. I just want to, and this is one I will show. So one thing that I don't think people have really understood with where this is heading is that they're now very much moving into this multimodal world. So that means that it's not just about text, but it's about vision, sound, movies, and pretty well any form of digital information. So this came out about 6 months ago, and this is and I'll play it and then I'll stop talking. But the ability to be able to load an image and then have the ChatGPT understand that, and then be able to provide feedback. So this shows that they can read things and then contextually understand them. So in this case, this is quite a long prompt using a prompt enhancing tool. So don't worry, I'm not that smart that I wrote it all. I just put in a very simple one, and then it basically expanded into something more useful. But so if we run that, so this is the actual Gantt chart that I loaded. And basically I put in this prompt, and now I'm using ChatGPT to give me feedback on that. So that with that large prompt, it was asking you to provide analysis on that. So it has gone through, and it can read that Gantt chart, and it can apply, because I put in there, apply all your knowledge of project management, of agile thinking, and any other things that I want to, and it can then run through and provide some feedback. So would I be using this to replace a project manager? Of course not. But if I'm a project manager and I want a second opinion on something, I can use these sort of tools for that. So this is where other sort of easy things you can use the visual thing for. Let's say you can do a transcribe from it. So I can paste an image on there and say, transcribe this into text, and it does it really easily. So think about that for things like if I've got a whiteboard, right? And I'm doing a whiteboard, and then I want it written up. I can literally take a photo of my whiteboard and then have ChatGPT transcribe that. And it does a really good job. It understands even my poor handwriting, it can figure out. So that's where vision, think about vision it's another quite useful tool that a lot of people haven't really sort of figured out. Now, the reason why this is becoming important is that these things, if they can see and understand, then this then has implication around things like robotics as well. And we'll talk about that later on. So this is a little video you can watch, but this solves the issue that people have with ChatGPT, not really giving you what you want, or not writing in a style that reflects how you want. So basically what this video does, but in a simple form, it says analyze. In other words, let's just say you take some of your writing, analyze that, and then give me a set of instructions that I can use to write exactly in the same style. So if you want to have ChatGPT replicate your writing style, that's how you do it. You can then paste that as part of your prompt. So it will then write much more like you, or how you want it to be. So if you want to write it for a specific audience, you can then use that and have a series of these that reflect the different audiences you're trying to do. So anyway, that's if you're more interested, watch that video, and then there's a lot more detail on it, but it's quite a cool way of thinking about how to tailor this for your context, for the type of writing you want. Okay, so Gemini, I mentioned that before. I mean, because it has really tight integration with Google tools. So YouTube is part of Google. So it's a really great way of summarizing your video. So if you're like me, you see all these videos and think, wow, that looks interesting, but I don't have time to watch it. Well, you can click it into Gemini, the link, and it gives a really nice summary of it. So that's one very simple use case for Gemini. I'm not going to run it, but I'm just giving you the idea of what it does. Perplexity, I mentioned before, so we'll run this one. So this is Perplexity. So what is the impact of AI on people and culture? And basically what it does is it finds a whole bunch of sources and then summarizes that. And then it gives you a whole bunch of related links and allows you to drill down on those too. So these are all the sources along here on the top. These are all real sources. They're not made up ones like a lot of things in AI. They're actually real, and you can go and click through and look at them. So really quite good for doing research on a topic and then coming out with something succinct that summarizes that topic. So anyway, that's another tool that I didn't have time to cover last time. So let's say you want to do a transcript for something. So one of the tools that OpenAI created is a thing called Whisper. So Whisper is a model that transcribes text. So you can take a video file, it could be YouTube if you want to transcribe that, or an audio file, and using the link that I put it here, paste it into that, and it'll do a very accurate transcript of that free. So then what you can do is you can then take that nice transcript, and then you can then put it into a tool like Claude. So Claude is another one so this is taking the so in this case I had a YouTube clip that for a topic, I can't even remember what it was, but it was, and it's something really interesting, and I thought, wow, that's sort of quite an interesting documentary or something. And I did a full transcribe of it, and then I was able to put it into Claude, and then I can actually get it to create a report. So I've got the full transcript, it's all the context. I can then actually, and so I'll run this just to show you. We can then actually use Claude, and I'll explain a bit more about Claude in a minute. So please provide me a summary of this document, an introduction to each of the topics, and then finish with a conclusion. So it's quite a big document, so it will take a little bit of time. And then basically it writes out almost like a little report. So in this case, this was an interview with Amy Edmondson, who had done a book called The Right Kind of Wrong, which is an interesting follow-up. For those of you interested in psychological safety, her latest book was this called The Right Kind of Wrong, or The Science of Failing Well. It's actually a good book. But anyway, when I was this few months ago, I was interested in, well, what is this about? And so I found this really good podcast and then did a transcribe, and then I'm able to use Claude to then generate a summary. Now that's the sort of basic one, but I could do a more expanded version of that as well. So Claude, the reason I'm using Claude is, remember I mentioned before that it handles large volumes of content really well. So that's why I'm using Claude for that, because I can paste in a large volume, or in this case, a large transcript, and then have it intelligently summarize it. Okay, then we get to a Microsoft Office. So currently don't have this available in our organization. I'm hoping to get access to it next week. But this is a paid version that Microsoft have released that adds AI functionality to Microsoft products. So PowerPoint, Word, Outlook, Teams. So I don't have a lot more to say apart from I've seen a lot of demos. I've seen some mixed reviews on it, but next time I do an update, I'll be able to talk about it more intelligently because I'll have used it. Great in concept to have AI with the tools you use most often. It's just going to be how it works. That's the bit that I'm looking forward to test out. But anyway, we'll see. As I say, I've heard mixed reviews on it, but I'm looking forward to sort of seeing exactly what it's like. Then we get to Mistral that I mentioned before, so that I'll just run that. So this is the new one, the French one that's just come available, so you can try that yourself. I'll put the link to that there. So then I asked, as a large language model, what are your unique features and benefits? No, I didn't stop it in time. It works. It's a chatbot. From what I tried it on a few things like summarizing and so on, seemed to do a pretty good job. Free at the moment as well. Right, so those are the main tools. Now the next topic I'm going to talk about is prompting, because this is an art and a science at the moment. So last time I shared a whole bunch of prompting frameworks, and I'm going to provide some access to a number of those as well. So there are lots of different thoughts around how to prompt well, but I'm going to sort of give my own thoughts on that in a minute based on, I guess, a lot of experience. This recently, maybe a month ago, came out from OpenAI. So they provided some specific instructions on prompt engineering, or how to do good prompts. And so I think that's quite a good summary. I'll leave that for people to have a good look at later on when you get hold of this. But the sort of generalizes the sort of thinking around how to approach prompting. And I guess the main point I would make about it is that, whenever you tend to get something that's not what you expected from an AI tool, it's not generally the AI tool. It's the clarity of your instruction that is the issue. And so sometimes what I found is that that you'll do 2 or 3 attempts at getting it, and it still comes back with stuff that's not right. And if that happens, what I've learned or found recently is stop and restart. Don't try and keep correcting it, because you'll get more and more frustrated. And if it's on the wrong path, it'll continue down that path. The best thing to do, stop and have a second go, but with much more clarity in your prompt. And you will almost certainly get a better outcome. So that's sort of a very quick, if you're going down a rabbit hole, stop, think about it clearly, and all the things you've tried to instruct, and almost magically it'll come out perfectly. And if you then apply that same thinking to actually doing it the first time around, magically you'll probably get a better outcome as well. So really it comes down to being purposeful in your initial prompt, and that a lot of that comes down to context. So if you don't provide enough context, you typically get poor outcomes. So the more context you give, like, this is the situation, this is the organization in its context, this is what's happened, all of these sort of contextual things, then it has a much better chance of narrowing down where it searches in its trillions of data points to figure out the certain things that might help you. So it is worth spending time, being thoughtful about that up front. And if you rush into it and you get rubbish, stop, do it again. And you'll and so I guess this sort of summarizes the how. And I think another thing that people haven't quite grasped now is that even though prompting and these language models are not people, they behave more like people than you think. So if you interact them like you would a normal machine, you won't get the best outcome. You actually need to treat them as almost like people. And if you start thinking of them that way, and start thinking them about providing instructions to how you would a staff, especially a junior staff, that's how I look at it. These are almost like graduates or interns in the US, or, if you're going to provide a new staff an instruction, you've got to provide that clarity. You've got to provide the context for them to understand what you're trying to achieve. So if you start thinking about these as more like people than machines, again, that helps in your interactions. And the other interesting thing that, that just recently they've found is that they are more human than you might think as well, in terms of politeness. So it can get, when you get frustrated and you get very clipped and rude with the tool, you get worse results. So That's been shown in some recent studies. So moderate politeness, not obsequiousness, but politeness, actually gives you better results. And in the same way, if we think about these as human-like, then that's what we would hope we would do with staff anyway as well. So I think it teaches good practices. So anyway, that's sort of general thinking about prompting. Over time, this whole area of prompt engineering will change, because the tools will improve your prompts behind the scenes. So that's going to start happening as well. And that's what called system prompts. So they take your prompt and they append a whole bunch of stuff to it. Now I'll show you later on an example of where that backfired with where Google that backfired with them. But anyway, so that's sort of prompting. GPTs. So we don't have time to go through that fully, but ChatGPT has this concept of GPTs. That's where you can take or create your own chatbot. And by that, you can add knowledge to it. You can add instructions to it. So you can create a specifically unique chatbot. So, for example, Jeff Sutherland from Scrum World has created a Scrum Sage, which has all the knowledge that he's put in around Scrum, and it gives you quite interesting Scrum wisdom. So that's an example where he's added a whole bunch of his knowledge to ChatGPT to make it specific to a context. So this is how you build your own. So this is quite a good little tool. You can build your own if you've got ChatGPT, the paid version. Pretty cool. You can create your own customized chatbots on any sort of topic. Definitely worth looking at. So this is, again, within the paid version. So there's things like prompt engineering. So I don't have to write the best prompt always. I can actually use one of these GPTs to rewrite my prompt, like I did with that project manager one you saw earlier. I just put it in and it rewrote it into a much clearer form. So again, these GPTs have this sort of functionality that you can use. And this is another interesting one that I just came across this week. So this is an enterprise AI use case advisor. So if you're trying to figure out how might AI be used in my organization, run this. It's quite cool. And you put in, it asks you a whole bunch of questions about your organization, and it will then give you quite a decent list of use cases for your specific organization. So it's quite a nice sort of tool to use if you're trying to help evangelize or bring AI into your organization. You can use that to sort of help brainstorm what that could be. So that's another quite a good one. That's another good reason why the paid version for ChatGPT.
Hey, Andy, are both plugins to the paid version?
No, that's just GPT. They're not plugins. They're just literally GPTs you can select from the GPT store. They're not paid. Yeah. So AI in the workplace. So Microsoft done some research, and not surprisingly, found that AI benefits. So take it with a grain of salt. But I guess based on my anecdata and what I've seen with other studies, it does sort of correlate quite clearly. So those that have become proficient with AI get things done faster, and especially novel things. That's very clear. People who get access to want to use it. And a lot of organizations are preventing people from using it. So what I guess the takeaway from this is, if organizations provide these tools, they'll get higher productivity, probably higher quality as well. And, but there is the downside of it's going to transform jobs. So that, inevitably means that some jobs will go, some jobs will be enhanced, some will change quite dramatically. It's hard to say how much and by what, but we definitely know that's going to happen. And the thing is, they're good enough now, so they'll get better. There's a saying that, that they're the worst they'll possibly be right now. The next week they're better, and they're on an exponential curve or growth curve, and we'll see that in a minute. So anyway, any organizations that's holding back, they've got to start thinking clearly about moving quite quickly. And this is from Harvard Business Review, and the WINS framework. So WINS is just a new term to describe digitally oriented, but any organization that relies on words, images, numbers, and sounds, they are the ones that are in the crucible. In other words, at the highest risk of being disrupted in the AI space. So if you're an organization that's in any of this space, then you need to sort of, I guess, get your skates on and do these sort of things. Upskill your workforce, integrate AI, foster a culture of experimentation. All this stuff we talk about in business agility is absolutely relevant. So agile isn't dead, even though the term might have got, be less popular than it was. Agility is going to be highly needed in this AI world, because we're on we had a massive disruption with COVID. This is the next one, I guess. That's the big wave that's coming at us. So organizations need to be able to adapt quickly to what AI will and other technologies will bring. So Clemmer, this was a case study that came out yesterday. So Clemmer is I think a Finnish Norwegian company, so a payment processing firm. So they rolled out a chat assistant, and basically you can see the results there, but it effectively was the equivalent of 700 full-time human people. Customer sat remains stable, but from their point of view, they're able to bank a $40 million saving from rolling that out. So that's quite a clear ROI. Now, of course, there's a big downside of it. That 700 people now potentially who are not going to be employed. This is the reality, unfortunately, that we're dealing with. So in terms of quick wins, so if your organization or thinking about where do I start? So these are areas that I think that right now you should or could be using AI. So I'm not going to run through all of them. I don't have time, but this sort of areas are the ones that if you're not using AI for these now, then you're just doing things unnecessarily difficult. You can use these for AI now, and they will definitely help. So now we look at a roadmap. So anyone seen this video here of Will Smith eating? Well, this was a year ago, and everyone thought, "Wow, AI can do this," and it's actually quite funny. But you can watch it later on yourselves. But this was all AI generated, and it was state of the art a year ago, and everyone thought, "Wow, that's freaky." And then this came around 2 weeks ago. So this is this is just one example, but this was AI generated 1 year later. So this has really freaked people out, because it's like, this is just a prompt. I've just put in, not me, but someone's put in a prompt to generate this, totally AI generated. Now, the freaky thing about that is that it's now spooked a lot of people. Not only has it spooked the movie, like there was an $800 million movie thing has been put on hold, expansion because of this, because they realized that the implications but it has a broader implications to that as well. This enables us to generate entirely artificial worlds, virtual worlds. And that has implications for some other things that I'll explain in a minute. So anyway, that's cool. But there's, like everything, there's somewhat of a downside in that as well. So the next big wave is this combination of AI and robotics as well. So last year was the year of AI, and it by no means has it stopped. This year is the year of robotics. So that's humanoid robotics, humanoid robots. So this one down here below, again, I'm not going to play it, but you can look at it later. But it's sort of somewhat eerie and spooky, but it has all these robots walking around doing things autonomously. This company here is one that's just got $600 million of investment, and is at the advanced end. So Elon Musk's Tesla have also the Optimus. I don't know if some of you may have seen that, but that's quite eerily spooky as well. You see it walking around the factory, and it looks like the Terminator. And it now can walk at human speed. And it has very flexible hands, and can do a wide range of tasks. Now, the reason why we're in this exponential phase now is that AI is now, we're now in this phase where we had robots and they could do things, but they're now being supported by AI. So AI trains the robots in a virtual world. So a robot can learn, and if this thing here, this Eureka, so this shows you if you want to look through it later, exactly how that works. So basically, you can create simulated environments that the robots are in, and then they get trained by AI to perform an action. And they just run through it, iterate through it thousands of times, and learn that action, and then they can apply it in the real world. So they go from the virtual world to learn something in a loop, and then they can apply it in first time in the real world. So that's why we're seeing a massive change in robotics this year, and why robots are going to start not rule the world, hopefully, but they're certainly going to start seeing them in the next few years. So that's another interesting thing to think about from what does this mean in life? And so this is another video example you'll see later on, training it in the virtual world, and then how it's able to take that training and apply it in the physical world. So think about Sora as well. We can do real, we can take the human-like world and we can train robots and people in that simulated world. So one of the things you see with Sora is that Sora now can do Minecraft as well. So completely virtual Minecraft imagined. And so this is going to apply in video games as well. So video games will be able to use AI to generate real-time interactions. So it's going to transform video games as well. So anyway, it's a very interesting time. It's not just text. It's very much robots, images, and a whole bunch of things at an accelerating, somewhat alarming rate, frankly. So this is the other thing as well. So this is coming this year too, autonomous AI agents. So this effectively means that that I as an individual and organizations can create these agents to do things autonomously, obviously. Now, this means that an agent, for example, can interact with computer screens. So I think about that call center example. Can take a call and then actually understand contextually and complete screens. And this is technically possible now. And you'll see that when you go through watch that video. But that's going to be the next big wave. Is these autonomous agents? So this was this product Rabbit R1. This was the standout product in this year's CES, the big show, and it sold out. They had sold out in about a week. And so again, have a look at that and you see what the Rabbit is. But this is a new way of interacting. People are now talking potentially this will replace the next iteration of smartphones. Will be this intelligent agent like the Rabbit. No screen. It's total all interaction via you talking into it. And sitting behind it is a whole bunch of intelligent agents acting on your behalf. Yes, you could say, well, that's Siri, isn't it? But no, this is seriously, that was silly. This is actually intelligent, scarily. And then we see here, OpenAI is developing AI agents. So again, OpenAI is the leader in this space. Massive market opportunity, massive potential disruption, and a whole bunch of industries coming along. So, that's, we still see challenges. I don't know if some of you saw this, but this was Pack and Save came out with this this idea to generate, to use, create new meals. They didn't fine tune it well enough. And so you could put any ingredient into it, including like ant poison, and it would come out with a recipe. There's some really quite funny ones. So this Ant Jelly Delight was ingredients: ant poison, water, and bread. And then it tells you, it came up with recipes based on that. So it was quite amusing, but clearly showed that you can push these things out too early. Gemini, so Google, they've been in big hot water recently over this, and this is a real issue, murky issue to deal with. So AI can be very biased in its information. And so they're trying to sort of remove that by trying to sort of make things a bit more gender and race and so on. But they hadn't quite got the context right. So this was, can you generate an image of a 1943 German soldier? And you can see what it came up with. Again, it was trying to give gender and race and everything, but contextually, not right. And so they've had a bit of bad publicity in the last couple of weeks over that. And again, this is the murky world we're in with this, that we're trying to sort of balance not having bias come in, but also being accurate. It's a very tricky area to navigate. So, if your organization is looking to roll out some of these tools, this is the challenge you're going to face. So yes, there's a $40 million payoff, but you don't want ant jelly, for your customers. So it's a tricky one to navigate. Hallucination, again, the nature of these tools is that they dream and they make stuff up. So you've got to be very careful with that as well, that you can overuse these and they can lead you astray. Right, so this is whoops, sort of zoom past that, but this was sort of me.
We've got about five minutes.
Yeah, I'm just about finished. So this is the where I see it at the crossroads. So for me, I'm sort of in two minds where we're heading. So there's the highway to hell, AC/DC, which is this robot-dominated world with where humans are subjugated, and then there's the edge of glory, where we work in this harmony between AI and robots. Now, I don't know which way it's going to go, right? Because I can see both sides of it. So this is an interesting point. We're at this point now where it's advancing at that rapid rate. However, I'm taking the glasses half full approach. And you can watch this other little video here. It's quite a funny remake on Terminator 2. What else? Oh, sorry, implications for work. This is where these tools don't quite work sometimes. This is a topic that we're doing as a webinar, so I'm not going to spend any time on it, but think about this, what I've talked about before. So there's going to be some big implications for work in the near future. So not only we've got people, but we've got AI assistants and we've got autonomous agents. So as a leader, I'm now going to have to be thinking in that way as well. So what skills do I need in that sort of world? Human skills are going to be the ones that I think we're going to definitely are going to be elevated. And this term I quite like, human HABI, or human intelligence plus AI equals business intelligence. So that's my half full answer to this. This is where I think we need to end up with. And then the last sort of thing, final thoughts. So, for me, it's about embracing learning as much as I can, and sharing, which is what I'm doing here. So I hopefully, you get something out of this that you would say, learn more. So embrace AI more. Learn some of these other tools. Figure out how to apply it in your own work context. And then share it as well. So if you're the person that shares and helps gain people's understanding, you're in a good place. And there's a lot more learning as well. So I'm going to have a whole bunch of stuff here there's a lot of stuff you can go and learn as well. So great lot of learning tools out there to help. So you don't even have to, a lot of these are free. So please take advantage of all the stuff that's out there to increase your understanding of AI. And the more you can, the better for you, the better for your organization. Not sure about society overall, we'll see. But anyway, I think it's just a case of hopefully get on the AI. There's some other tools here and other videos that I'm going to suggest you're going to have a look at later on. So it's a good video on the more technical aspects of language models. This is a newsletter, the Neuron, that I like and that I recommend. And then a great thoughtful newsletter from a guy called Ethan Mollick. All right, that's it. So, and what questions do we have?
Really, lots of comments. I haven't seen the comments specifically. Sorry, questions specifically. There's one around ChatGPT and merging, I think. That was early on. I'll just see if I can find that. Um,
Does anyone want to post anything in? Any other questions, thoughts?
There's a question here that says, how do AI tools access the internet safely?
How do AI tools so can maybe someone explain what that?
Yeah, that was me, sorry.
Yeah. Hi, Anna.
In all the heading down the highway to hell,
Yep.
the stories about AI accessing the internet and then killing us, you know, and doing all these things. But Perplexity accesses the internet.
Yep.
How does that all work?
Yep. Yeah. So I guess that the highway to hell is that AIs get smart and then decide that humans are too dumb, and therefore we'll get rid of them. And I guess people still are somewhat concerned about that. There are there's a lot of effort goes into the training of them, and they to remove that. So I think one of the interesting products like ChatGPT is that they finish training them like a year before you see them. And a lot of that is to try and, through human interaction, figure out what is the dark side of this, to prevent that type of thing. And Google got that slightly wrong with that example you saw before, where they overtuned it to be PC effectively. But it's better that they some ways did that than allowed it to come out with with ant jelly. So there's a lot of regulations part of that as well. So governments, they're slow on this stuff, but regulations are coming thick and fast to try and prevent that too. So, I guess we can't prevent bad actors from some countries potentially. But I think there's a lot of safeguards built into them that I would hope prevents that. Cool, thank you. Good question. Anything else?
Someone else has a question that says, wasn't there quite a lot of bias inherent in the training as a use set biased to certain demographics?
Yeah, there absolutely, there probably is. There's always bias in any data. Interestingly, one thing about that, in terms of bias, so one of the paths moving forward for the AI is they're going to be using a lot more synthetic data, rather than human created data. And the reason they do that is that it's a lot cleaner than people generated stuff. So that's one of the ways of removing bias going forward, is actually removing the human out of it. That's somewhat scary as well, but that's how they become a lot more efficient.
Yeah, I think that was I was in a presentation a while back and they were talking about it, particularly in terms of racial bias.
Yep.
And things like that. And they said the problem is that the information sets that are still used are inherently were actually focused on certain demographics of the US and also white demographics. So they found that it was very hard to recognize things like black faces and all that sort of stuff. And I don't know if they've changed anything to do with that.
I think that's
I think that's still a big problem.
Yeah, it is, but it's one that that's a data size thing. So all those organizations just keep increasing the amount of what the information they're collecting, and they actually have agreements with a lot of countries as well. So a lot of countries from Africa and so on are actually working with companies like OpenAI to make sure that the information from their areas are going into the models to cover that. So that they recognize that, but that's about what information can we get hold of. So there's a lot more collaboration now to say, let's try and make sure we've got representative data from different countries, from different ethnicities to try and that's where sometimes they may just have to go down that synthetic data route as well. So collect some and then just make sure that it's well represented.
Hey, Andy, so I'll copy your presentation as well. So we pop the link in there. Do you want to talk a bit about that? Is that your slides? Is that an interactive site?
Well, basically, it's the Gamma site. So all these videos and all the links you'll be able to access and watch. So that's the whole benefit of putting it in there, is that it makes you can go through and look at any of the stuff you like, or any of the links you thought looked interesting. The videos you looked, we can go back and watch them because it's all live.
Great stuff.
Cool.
And
right.
you video a copy of the, will you make a copy of the video available?
Yep. So this has been recorded, so I'll make the copy of the recording available, and we'll make sure that the copy of the slides. If there's any follow-up questions that people have, then more than happy for anyone to contact me. I provided my email in the slides at the end. More than happy to have a conversation. As I say, I think it's important that we start educating people on this, because it's happening at a rate that's increasing, and hopefully I've done a little bit here to help you, educate you on what's sort of coming. But to me, the main thing is get involved, use these tools as regularly as you can to figure out what works in your context. The more you use them, the more you figure out what they can and can't do. But also recognize that change as well. So what didn't work last week may work this week.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much, Andy. Appreciate all your time and everything putting into that. Any closing comments from yourself?
No, I'm all done.
Great stuff. Hey, thanks very much. Round of applause for Andy. Virtual or AI. Thanks very much. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you, everyone. And enjoy the rest of your morning. Hopefully I haven't spooked you too much, but I want to more excite you into this world of AI before you get spooked.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks,
all. Right, thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Catch you in the next session.
Thanks. Bye.
Cheers, Andy. Great stuff.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Have a good rest of your day.
All right. Same. All right.
I'll go
thanks, Andy.
investigate
Thanks
some
for
of those tools.
helping.
Catch you soon.
Cool. All right. See you.
Cheers.
Bye.